organizers and Dr. Rajni. Thank you very much. And today I am happy to introduce Dr. Rajni Farmania, who is a well-known figure and a well-known name in neurological problems in children. And she is heading the Department of Neurology and at BLK Max Hospital. And today we are going to learn from her the basic, that is normal EEG visual impressions. I think we all will be wise after listening to her. What is normal EEG visual impressions? Dr. Rajni, please.
Thank you, sir, for introducing me. And I think crowd knows me since morning. And I'll start with the session. So we'll start with the second topic, and most of it is an overlap between Dr. Goswami's topic and mine. We'll go ahead with the one which we'll learn new, visual analysis in normal children. And this one is an important topic, I would say, because children, the pediatric age group is a wide variation. We see an infant, we see a child, we see an adolescent, and it is a wide variation. And as the brain matures, the EEG also matures. And that is how the pediatric EEG is different from adult EEG. Even in adult EEG, unless until it is a geriatric age group, they have a broad spectrum with the same kind of findings. So to know the normal variations in background and in the age and state of the children will be very important. These are the common reasons for misinterpretation. So I would like you to all focus on this. You all have a small booklet also along. All the PPTs or whatever we are teaching, it's there in sequence. If you want to mark, you can mark in that. So moving forward, so we'll go understanding the age and state of the child. I'll present two ways. One is maturation of different age forms with age. And second way is age-wise evolution of child. Second is an organized approach to visual analysis of EEG. Most of it is covered by Dr. Goswami. I'll just flick over the slides. And when to use different EEG protocols. This is a different one than Dr. Goswami. So EEG markers in different age groups, in different stages. In awake, we have a background, that is a posterior dominant rhythm, physiological waveforms, which is lambda wave and posterior slow wave of youth, new rhythm, activation, procedure related changes, and artifacts. So these are the things we want to look for in an awake state. And there is a transition between awake and sleep, which is very important. And we want to attain an ideal EEG with this state. Whenever there is a light sleep in the drowsy phase, which is difficult to attain in a practical scenario when you are very busy, but this is the ideal stage when you want to look for epileptiform discharges coming up. Next is the sleep markers. These are the three common sleep markers. So let's see the background rhythm in awake state. That is an alpha wave. So when is it established? It is not in a neonate. It gets established at the age of 3 months. So 0 to 3 months, it will be a poorly defined posterior rhythm. After 3 months, you should be able to see a posterior dominant rhythm in awake state. In a 3-month-old child, it is very difficult to get awake EEG, but if you are able to get it, then you will be able to see a posterior dominant rhythm being established. At the age of 12 months, it will be 6 to 7 hertz. So a 1-year child who has a awake state attained and you get the eyes closed, you get 6 to 7 hertz EEG. Everything is there in your booklet. Okay. And at the age of 3 years, it will be 7 to 8. At the age of 8 years, this is an important point here that at the age of 8 years, 8 hertz. So a magic number to remember. After that, when you increase with your age, like 9 years, 9 hertz, 10 years, 10 hertz. After 11 years, it will be as same as the adults. So around 11 to 12 hertz EEG in adults. Initial alpha is Rolandic occipital. Rolandic means centrotemporal occipital, and then it becomes clearly occipital. That is called posterior dominant rhythm or PDR. The activity is alpha rhythm has a beautiful reaction with eye closure. When you close your eyes, you will see that the alpha rhythm is seen. And when you open your eyes, it is gone. This has been spoken about by Dr. Goswami also. So this is a normal awake alpha rhythm, which is seen posterior dominant rhythm, a 7-year-old child. So we should be able to see how many hertz background? 6 to 7 around. So this is how you see the background. The two lines are 1 second mark, and then you can count the number of oscillations. It will be around 7. Drowsiness phase. Between awake and sleep, there is a drowsiness phase where you see a hypnagogic hypersynchrony. In a child less than 5 years, it is very difficult to get the child awake and then a drowsiness and then a sleep stage. But if you are able to get it with a cooperative child, you will be able to see this one. And this is a very important marker where we get lot of misinterpretations. Lot of AGs get this and they report it as abnormal. So you should be able to recognize this waveform as hypersynchrony. These are bilateral hypersynchronous high voltage waves in 2 to 3 months. Like 3 month PDR is established, 3 month hypersynchrony is established. At the age of 9 months, it is very prominent. At the age of 4 years, it is very short burst. And after 12 years, like in adulthood, you will not be able to see this as prominent as in children. So first image shows a 3-month-old child, 3 to 4 hertz. This is a hypersynchronous wave. In a 15-month-old child, that same hypersynchrony is prolonged and a little longer and strong and diffuse. In a 2.5-year-old child, a paroxysmal burst is seen. Like 2.5 to 4 years, small paroxysmal burst will only be seen. So most prominent age group where hypersynchrony is seen is 1.5 to 2 years. Okay. So what happens in drowsiness in older children? There will be certain markers which I have shown. There are the 4 important points. The most common and easily discernible is alpha dropout. Whenever the child goes in a drowsy state, you'll see that the alpha is getting down, which is pointed as 1. Next is increased beta activity over the frontocentral region. Beta activity is generally seen in frontocentral region. With the sedation also you see a lot of this thing. So this might appear, not in all cases you will get. Then you'll get diffuse rhythmic theta activity with interior predominance. Theta is commonly seen in centrotemporal region. You'll see in the interior predominant wave. And then the slow eye movement, which he spoke about, that whenever you want to lie down or you're drowsy, then your eyes will move. So it will be slow eye movement. So this is a 13-year-old boy with awake to drowsy transition state. I will show 3-4 images to be more sure. So here you are able to see alpha, and then somehow you are able to not see. So next slide, if you go, you are able to see that the alpha dropout seen in between, and then again alpha is seen. So he is drowsy and then he is awake in between. There is a transition phase which is going on. And then you see the eye movements here. Can you see these movements? The roving eye movements are also seen. Here beta is not seen. Rhythmic theta is not very prominent. Like remarkable thing was alpha dropout. So you should always look into alpha. If suddenly alpha goes up, you should try to see either the patient has opened his eyes or the child is going to the drowsy state. So this is again roving eye movements, and then you can see little spindles are also coming up next. If you would see, then vortex wave will come, and then the spindles will come. So what are the sleep markers? We have discussed the awake state, the drowsy state, and now we'll move forward to sleep markers. So vortex waves is the earliest wave which we see in a light phase. As the child goes into drowsy phase and light sleep will come, you'll see a lot of vortex wave, which is very commonly mistaken as epileptiform discharges. In my initial DM reporting days, I reported one child with vortex wave as frontocentral epilepsy. And then when it was processed with my senior, he told me, what have you done? This is a normal vortex wave. So very common mistake with the initial DM trainees, that they'll mistake vortex wave with the frontocentral discharges. That is seen in light sleep, single negative polarity, maximum in a frontocentral region, and it occurs in runs. The point is, you'll see the similar waves occurring in a certain time. In 3-4 pages along, 30-40 seconds, you'll see that. It appears at 3 months. So 3 month figure is very magical. PDR will be established, hypersynchrony will be established, your vortex will be seen, but it is most prominent after 5 months. So vortex is V. V is for 5. That is how you remember that after 5 months, if a child is going into sleep phase, you should be able to see vortex wave. Okay. So it is maximum in 2 to 4 years. In a child who is 2 to 4 years, you will be seeing more prominent in a longer runs. And then initially it is asymmetric, then it becomes symmetric. So this is vortex symbol and complex. This is how it looks. That initially, this pointer is not working, but last slide is showing. This is central predominant. This is a bipolar montage, and you can see this. The same if we see in a vortex in the average. The same epoch I have pasted in the average thing also. Where you can see clearly there is a central predominance, and this is a generalized single negative polarity wave as a vortex wave in the initial part of sleep. This is the same child CEG. He was awake, he went into drowsy phase. Now you're getting to see the vortex wave. So what are spindles? Spindles come in the second stage of sleep. So here it is at 12 to 15 hertz. So it will be a faster sinusoidal. Centroparietal region is the common. 6 to 8 weeks. So it comes a little earlier. So in a child who is a 2-month-old postgraduate, NICU graduate or otherwise, you should be able to see spindles. The spindles here is a little confusing because it is asymmetric and the morphology is different. Early spindles between 3 to 6 months, you'll see a prolonged spindle, a comb-like spindle, and that is asymmetric. So these markers are sometimes not clearly understood that these are spindles because these are prolonged and the morphology is also like comb-like, sawtooth-like. And very commonly we can mistake with other epileptiform discharges also. What are K complexes? It is a triphasic, long wave, large amplitude, followed by a burst of sleep spindles. So this phenomena followed by sleep spindles is not always. It is like not 100% that all the K complexes will be followed by sleep spindles. It occurs in the response to external stimuli. It is present at 5 months. So at 5 months, you should be able to see vortex wave. You should be able to see K complexes. The duration is 0.5 seconds, which is like a 1 second duration. It's a pretty longer one and wider duration. And seen in stage 2 in REM, maximum in adolescents. So this is a K complex, which might be mistaken for generalized epileptiform discharges if it is not followed by spindles. Here it is followed by spindles, but at times you can see a K complex, which looks like generalized epileptiform discharges. So evolution of sleep markers, awake is a posterior dominant rhythm, then drowsiness, where you'll see the alpha dropout, hypersynchrony. Then you'll go to the V wave, vortex wave, then K complexes and spindles. Posterior occipital sleep transients is another, it's not very common, seen in usually adolescents. So I'm not speaking to, not to confuse you more. And slow wave sleep is a delta sleep. Stage 3 and 4 is a slow wave delta sleep pattern. So stage 2 sleep, 3 markers. Here also, yeah, 3 patterns. So posterior occipital sleep transients, these are commonly mistaken as lambda waves. So I think so this might be confusing for MD residents. For DM residents, this might be interesting. That these are surface positive. So posterior occipital sleep transients. Sorry, positive. P is positive. So positive in EEG, positive means it is not like this. It is a negative deflection. So positive occipital sleep transients. So during the sleep transition phase only you'll get in the occipital region and in a positive way. So it is 4 to 5 hertz in runs, bilateral synchronous. And how to differentiate between lambda waves? Lambda is seen in awake state. And this is a sleep stage. So age-wise maturation, 1 to 12-month-old child, you'll be able to see posterior dominant rhythm at 3 months. And then after attaining a posterior dominant rhythm, you'll count the frequencies. And that is how you age the child. Then sleep, you'll see the delta rhythm, spindles, vortex waves, K complexes. Spindles earlier and then vortex wave, K complexes, then hypnagogic hypersynchrony. 2-month-old child, you are able to see slight spindles which are coming up. Here again, the spindles are there, but it is asymmetric. So don't confuse. It can be diffuse, it can be asymmetric, it can be longer, it can be comb-like. So morphology is different. Again, a very sharp comb-like pattern. 1 to 3 years, alpha is almost the same, 6 to 8 hertz. And then the background, you have a theta delta background, bilaterally symmetrical. Spindles appear during this age. And then the Rousey background. This is 18-month-old EEG, where you can see here symmetric spindles and very clear morphology. In 3 to 8 years, again, the in awake stage, the frequency will help us to age the to tell about the age of the child. Then the sleep background. Sleep, you'll be able to see spindles, vortex, and K complexes, and then in drowsy stage, alpha attenuation. 7-year-old child, again that same image, posterior dominant rhythm. Here you count the frequencies. 8 to 12 years, again the frequency is 9 years, 9, 10 is 10. And then FIDA is frontal intermittent rhythmic delta activity. It need not be seen, might be seen very non-specific. Sometimes it is marker of epileptiform discharges also, so not a very strong correlate for epilepsy or non-epilepsy. Occipital lambda is seen in adolescents. So less than 8 years, lambda is not seen. In adolescents also post is seen, that is positive occipital sleep transients. And then you have clear sleep staging. In drowsy state, again, alpha is reduced. That is the most common and earliest marker, and then hypersynchrony during the transition phase. So 9-year-old child, 8 to 9 hertz alpha. 10-year-old child, very clear and beautiful alpha, 10 hertz. Here, postoccipital sleep transients, you can see that little spindles will be coming up there and alpha is drop out, and then you're able to see this one. Sleep spindles in a 10-year-old child. 12-year and above, it is almost like adult age. Okay, well defined 9 to 11 hertz, frontal intermittent rhythmic delta activity. FIDA is common in 15 to 25 or 35 years. So pediatric age group, it is almost in adolescent and adult age group. Occipital lambda is common, post is common. And in a dosive phase, again the drug for dropout. So let's recap. This is a quick diagram. This is a, diagram at Google. You'll be able to see where it is just recording this 3 hertz, 6 to 7 hertz, 7 to 9 hertz, the awake background, and then there is a hyperventilation response between that 3 months to 4 years, and there is a transition, and then sleep markers. So this is a visual analysis of EEG, which most of it is covered by Dr. Goswami. I'll not waste much time because many of these things will be covered at workstations also. I'll just pick over the slides. Technical standards we have already spoken about. The adequacy is in awake EEG, you should try to attain at least 20 to 30 minutes record. In a neonate, 60 minutes record to attain a full sleep-wake cycle. Try to capture light sleep in older infant and child and a quiet sleep in neonate for a clear description, like to increase the yield of EEG. In a background, which is a very important marker, we don't have to just look into spike and wave discharges. Like we don't have to hunt for epileptiform discharges. Background gives a lot of information. Continuity, symmetry, synchrony, voltage. What is the composition means? The rhythm, alpha, beta. Suppose an awake child, 10 to 11-year-old child shows an alpha of 7 to 8 hertz. So that's abnormal. You know that this child should have this much of alpha and this is abnormal. Composition, additional features with reactivities, the transients and artifacts. So continuous and a discontinuous record, burst and interburst interval. Burst is an interburst like attenuation and suppression. There's a clear marker in that. In attenuation, I think next slide will have. In attenuation, it is less than 50% amplitude, and in suppression, it is less than 10 microvolt. I think it will be coming in upcoming slides. Symmetry. This one is symmetrical spindles, and in the second one it is asynchronous spindles. There are two terms. One is symmetry, and other is synchronicity. Symmetry is the same hemisphere, the homology between the hemisphere. Asynchrony is the same part of the hemisphere. You want to see the same marker in the other hemisphere. So in the second slide, second cartoon, you can see the spindles on the right hemisphere on their side, and the other one spindles on the left hemisphere differently. So here again, that I was speaking about suppressed 10 microvolt background and attenuated less than 50%, but more than 10 microvolts. So initially you can see a burst, then there is a attenuation, then there is a suppression. This is a 2-month-old child's EEG. Again, 2-month-old baby with a history of seizures. You can see asynchronicity in the background. In the right hemisphere, you can see that there's a background rhythm shows something else, and there is a suppression, and you can see some here and there background activity, which is asynchronous. So this he has covered. Additional features he has covered in details. That is reactivity, sleep markers, and artifacts. Epileptiform discharges also he has covered. And we'll discuss all this at station also. So I'm not covering this. So topography is, you have to say whether it's generalized or localized. Periodic discharges will be covered at one station. So periodicity is defined as 1 per second for 6 seconds. So there has to be 6 together, or it has to be in 1 second, 2 you get it, and then it is there for 3 seconds. So that is the definition of periodicity. Discharges in runs, we'll see in the subsequent slides. In the next session, we have self-limited focal epilepsies. It will be covered in that. Epileptiform discharges morphology. So these are spikes, these are polyspikes. Spiking is single, polyspike, as the name suggests, is polyspiking and then a wave. EEG is an important tool, should be used very judiciously. Is it okay to get EEG done repeatedly in a child because it is non-invasive? So no, it is very difficult in pediatrics to get first is to allay the parental anxiety that you have to get it done again. Why an investigation is to get it done again? Then the sedation risk is there. And the other thing is not getting an ideal EEG report every time. So missing the diagnosis. So what are the problems? Risk and difficulty of sedation, difficulty in getting the cooperation from the child, especially the older ones. They'll not cooperate. Adding more to the confusion by not doing a correct protocol, and then cost implications. So it must be used judiciously and correct protocol must be used. So this slide is very important, which shows that when to use what EEG. So EEG with hyperventilation and photic stimulation is a must when you suspect a child to have a absence epilepsy or genetic generalized epilepsy, that whole spectrum. So absence epilepsy, juvenile myoclonic epilepsy, idiopathic childhood epilepsy. So any genetic generalized epilepsy, you need to have these markers. At times, if you don't get a yield in first, like hyperventilation, you can go for repeat hyperventilation or a longer hyperventilation to get the yield when you strongly suspect that this is a case of absence epilepsy. Sleep deprived EEG is good for self-limited focal epilepsies like epilepsies, benign Rolandic epilepsies, that is benign centrotemporal epilepsy, Thanatophilus syndrome, or late onset occipital lobe epilepsy, nocturnal frontal lobe epilepsy. So these are seizures which you see specifically in a sleep phase. You want to attain a sleep phase to see these discharges, and there is a sleep potentiation. In awake, you'll get just one or two occasional spike and wave discharges, and then you will see the runs of discharges in sleep. Electrical status epilepticus, again, you need that sleep and wake both, because sleep will have abundant discharges, awake will have, it might be normal also, very little or normal. Focal onset epilepsies. So practically, other than genetic generalized epilepsy, in all the other spectrum of pediatric epilepsy, sleep deprivation will help and increase the yield of discharge, yield of EEG, giving a impression. In generalized seizure, if the first, suppose the child has had first unprovoked seizure, you have done a EEG, awake, EEG, HPPS, you are satisfied, but there is no discharge. If you do a repeat sleep deprived EEG and a longer one, you'll get the chances of getting some abnormality will increase in the second EEG. So carry home messages, age and stage maturation is very important. Abnormal markers like artifacts are very important, and changes during hyperventilation, photic stimulation. So that is how you differentiate a normal and a abnormal EEG. Technical aspects should always be kept in mind. Write EEG protocol to choose a better analysis. So a child who is suspecting a benign Rolandic epilepsy, you get awake EEG and you report as normal, don't take as epilepsy. That is not acceptable. Then organized visual analysis will help you not to miss anything. Okay. So thank you. So I would like to end the session. And if you want to make any comments, Dr. Sani and Dr. Ramu.
No, I think for a person like me who's more into autism and ADHD,
There is an
this
expert in
was
developmental
no,
pediatrics
I'm not an
and
expert, but let
lot
me
of
tell
keen
you,
interest.
Rajni is a big backbone relief for us, at least whenever we have any abnormal, any abnormality in the behavior or something. I think Rajni का number अब याद हो गया दे देकर सब पेशेंट को उसी को भेजते हैं. I think she takes